My stepmother called me worthless at Dad's funeral. Said I'd never amount to anything like her precious son. What she didn't know. I'd been planning this moment. And her empire was about to crumble. The funeral reception was supposed to be somber. Margaret, my stepmother, had other plans. She stood by the mahogany bar, crystal glass in hand, surrounded by Dad's business partners. Her voice carried across the room like venom. David was always the smart one, she announced, gesturing toward her son. Sarah here. She looked at me with disgust. Poor thing never inherited her father's business sense. Probably end up waiting tables somewhere. The room fell silent. David smirked from behind her, adjusting his expensive tie. These people, Dad's so-called friends, they nodded along like sheep. Margaret had married into wealth, but she wielded it like a weapon. Maybe a nice little diner job, she continued, her laugh cutting through the air. Something simple for simple minds. That night changed everything. But the real story started 3 years earlier. When Dad married Margaret, I was 25 and working my way up in his tech company. She brought David, her son from a previous marriage, into the fold immediately. Suddenly, my ideas became his presentations. My late-night coding sessions resulted in his promotions. Margaret poisoned every conversation. In board meetings, she'd interrupt me mid-sentence. Let the men handle this, dear. At family dinners, she'd discuss business with David while I cleared plates. Dad, blinded by love, saw none of it. The breaking point came during Dad's illness. While I spent nights at his bedside, Margaret and David were busy. They convinced him to update his will, restructuring the company shares. When the lawyers read it after the funeral, everything became clear. David inherited controlling interest. I got a trust fund with conditions Margaret controlled. But they underestimated one thing. I'd been learning. During Dad's final months, I'd quietly documented everything. Margaret's embezzlement through fake vendor accounts. David's insider trading using company information. Their plan to sell Dad's life work to competitors the moment he died. I'd also been making friends. Real ones. Lisa, our head of security, had always respected me. Marcus, our top developer, knew whose ideas had really built our flagship software. And Jennifer, Dad's original business partner who Margaret had forced out, she'd been waiting for this moment too. The night of the funeral reception, after Margaret's humiliation, I made my calls. By Monday morning, the FBI had frozen all company accounts. The board of directors, people who'd watched Margaret destroy Dad's legacy, received detailed evidence of fraud. The tech industry publications ran stories about the family company's dark secrets. David's face when federal agents walked into his corner office was priceless. Margaret tried to play innocent, but her luxury purchases matched the missing funds perfectly. The company's emergency board meeting lasted 6 hours. With David facing federal charges and Margaret's assets frozen, they needed new leadership immediately. Jennifer returned as CEO with me as Chief Technology Officer, the position I'd earned years ago. Margaret's empire collapsed in 72 hours. The penthouse apartment. The vacation homes. David's sports cars became evidence in a federal case. 6 months later, I stood in that same reception hall, but this time it was for our company's Innovation Award ceremony. Lisa introduced me as the visionary behind our revolutionary AI platform. Marcus cheered from the audience as I accepted recognition for patents that now bore my real name. Margaret sat in the back row, her designer clothes replaced by a simple black dress. No crystal glass this time, she couldn't afford the wine. David watched from federal prison via video link, serving his 2-year sentence for securities fraud. As I approached the podium, I caught Margaret's eye. She looked smaller now, diminished. The woman who'd once commanded a room with her cruelty now seemed like what she'd always been, a fraud wearing someone else's success. I didn't mention her in my speech. Didn't acknowledge the years of humiliation or the funeral reception that changed everything. Instead, I talked about resilience, about rising above those who try to diminish your worth. Because true revenge isn't about destruction, It's about proving them wrong so completely that their opinions become irrelevant. After the ceremony, Margaret approached me in the parking lot. She looked tired, defeated. "Sarah, she started. "Mrs. Thompson," I interrupted, using her maiden name. She'd lost the right to Dad's name along with everything else. "I believe you once suggested I find work in food service." She nodded, shame coloring her cheeks. "You were wrong about that too," I said, walking toward my car. "But don't worry, I hear the prison commissary is hiring."